So I had a slight interruption, so I'm not quite sure where the end of the last video got cut off. So I just want to readdress in this problem that I got a solution of 3 and it's considered an extraneous solution because when I go back to the original problem and I put 3 back in for x, it's going to make my denominators become 0 or some of them, and that can't happen. So moving to the next problem, what I'm going to do is, again, go through my steps and I will be adding the opposite. Step A, I don't have to do that. So the next step is B, I will be factoring all my denominators. So I'm going to start with the one on the left. And as your green factoring page tells you, you need to look for GCF, which x squared plus x minus 6 does not have. So with 3 terms, what I'm going to do is make my x. So I need factors of -6, they get me to 1. And that would be 3x and -2x. And this is easy factoring because it's x squared. So x squared plus x minus 6 will turn into x plus 3 and x minus 2. So this denominator is no longer needed because I have it in its factored form. So the next thing I'm going to do is step C. I'm going to just check out my domain or my excluded values, values that, could potentially be extraneous solutions if I get those as answers. And in my first fraction, I would see that I shouldn't pick -3 or 2. And in the last fraction, I'll see that I can't pick 2 as well. So now what I'm going to do is step D. I'm going to find my least common denominator. Some of you can see it, but if you can't, what I'll do is make my fraction table. So I'm going to start with my first fraction. And my first fraction is, just a second, sorry. Just trying to fix the pen here. I'll put in x plus 3 and x minus 2. My second term, the 2, doesn't have a fraction or a denominator, and the third fraction just has x minus 2. So when I bring everything down, that will be my least common denominator. So my LCD will be x plus 3 and x minus 2. So I'm going to just make a little note of that, and I'll be erasing this, so if you need to get it written down, write it down. Otherwise, we're going to keep moving on. So erasing this, my LCD is x plus 3 and x minus 2. So my next step is I'm going to follow step E. I'm going to multiply the numerator in each term or fraction, there's 3 of them, by the entire LCD. So I'm going to take the first fraction and multiply it by x plus 3 and x minus 2. I'm going to take the second fraction, or just the 2 I should say, and multiply it by x plus 3 and x minus 2. And then that last fraction, x plus 3 and x minus 2. And again, the reason why we're doing this is these numerators that I've written down, this LCD, is going to cancel out all the denominators, so then I won't have a denominator, and it should be pretty simple to solve for x. So going to my first fraction, let's see. This x plus 3 will take out this x plus 3. This x minus 2 will take out this x minus 2. Sorry, should have been these that were crossed off. And when I'm done, I just have -13. When I go to my next fraction, there is no denominator to cancel out. So I'll have the 2, the x plus 3, the x minus 2, all of that there. But I need to multiply this back so it's in standard form. And if you guys remember, x plus 3 and x minus 2 came from this right here. So if I multiply x plus 3 and x minus 2 back, I'll just get the x squared plus x minus 6. So that's what I'm going to write down here. X squared plus x minus 6. And again, if I multiply, let's see, if I multiply this, I'll get this, just as a reminder one more time. All right, going to the third fraction. This x minus 2 will take out this x minus 2, so when I'm ready, I'll have x minus 3 and x plus 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just clean this up. So the -13 will stay -13. I'm going to distribute this 2 through, so I get 2x squared plus 2x minus 12. And then in x minus 3 and x plus 3, we're going to have the neighbors visit, so I'm going to get x squared. And then I'm going to get a 3x, but when this visits, I'm going to get a -3x, and those 2 terms will cancel out. And then finally, when -3 meets 3, I get a -9 or -9. So now what I'm going to do is get this in standard form, which means, again, the highest power first, then the x, and then the constant, and it's got to equal 0. So I'm going to start by putting the x squareds together, and I have 3 of them. And then the 2x, well, that'll just be 2x because there's nothing to combine with it. But when I combine the -12 and the -9, right now I'm at -21. But when I move this -13 over, I add it, like this, then what I'm going to end up with over here is a -8, and now it's equaling 0. So now I'm ready to solve, and again, with more than one type of x, I will factor. There is no GCF. And since it's 3 terms, I'll be making my x. So I'll have factors of -24 x squared. The bottom will be 2x. And those side numbers will be 6 and 4, with the 4 being negative. Now, this is not easy factoring because there is a 3 in front of the x squared. So I'm going to have to rewrite this. This 2x will be broken up into the 6x minus 4x. So 3x squared plus 6x plus -4x plus -8, this equals 0. And now with 4 terms, I can group them. So group the first 2, group the last 2, and in the first set, the GCF will be a 3x, and I'm left with x plus 2. And again, those just have to match, so I have another x plus 2. And then what was I taking out? I took out a -4, because -4 times this x gives me this -4x here. And now I have my factors. One of them is the x plus 2, and the other is the 3x minus 4. And what's going to make these equal to 0? Well, the first one's pretty simple to see. That is -2. And the other one, if you don't see it, remember, just set it equal to 0. I'm going to add 4. So that gives me this, and then I'm going to divide by 3. So my answer is 4/3. So are either of these extraneous solutions? Are these answers that I noticed in the beginning? So I'm going to go back up here, and I said it couldn't be -3 and 2. Well, this is a -2, so that's okay. So both of these answers work. All right? And then that's it for your notes. So we're going to be going into the homework next. I will kind of show you a couple problems. After that, you do have a practice mile marker. That, remember, we will be taking our fourth and final mile marker pretty soon, so we need all the practice we can get.